Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a bit different, taking a really fascinating look into a profound text, Surah 59, traditionally known as Al-Hashr. But listen, we aren't just going to look at this as some ancient historical document. Instead, we're going to explore how this text actually functions as an incredibly precise diagnostic manual for human behavior and cosmic law. It's kind of like looking at a universal operating system, rather than just a history lesson.
So think about this for a second. What if the ultimate consequences for our actions weren't just, waiting for us in some distant afterlife, but were actively operating all around us right here, right now? That's a massive paradigm shift. It completely changes how you view your daily choices when you realize that accountability is a perpetually active system, and that is exactly the framework we're going to unpack today.
All right, let's jump right in. To decode this, we'll follow its highly organized four-part structure. First up, the mechanics of consequence. Second, distributing resources. Third, the illusion of concealment. And finally, the weight of cosmic law.
Starting with Section 1, the mechanics of consequence, specifically looking at the collapse of fortifications.
We start off with a very specific historical event, an exile, but we need to see it as a physical manifestation of divine decisiveness. The text sets up a framework rooted in the letters AKH. Now, normally, people associate this with end times or eschatological judgments, right? But here, the consequence system isn't some deferred judgment you're just waiting around for. It's an active, continuously running background process. It's literally like an operating system protocol constantly scanning for and removing corrupted files that fall out of alignment.
To really illustrate this, the text points to a faction that faced exile, and they relied entirely on their physical walls for protection. The Arabic root DNN is used here, meaning they supposed or reckoned they'd endure. They totally assumed their fortresses were impregnable against these overarching systemic forces. But the disruption didn't come from a battering ram outside. It came from an unforeseen internal psychological vector. Their physical architecture failed completely against cosmic law, which ultimately resulted in the self-demolition of their own structures.
Looking at the actual source code of the text, we see the roots car B, to destroy or vacate, and car J, to expel. These roots act as absolute operational markers. They specifically denote being removed from a functional space the exact moment your operational standing is lost. It's the bare metal mechanics of what happens when you violate the core purpose of the system you reside in.
Moving right along to Section 2, distributing resources and the flow of Fey.
So when an entity is displaced, the system doesn't just pause. It immediately starts reallocating resources. Notice the DWL flow here. It represents a mandatory alternating cycle. The explicit mandate? Resources absolutely cannot become a static monopoly hoarded by the top 20%. The text literally treats the concentration of wealth as a dangerous, fatal system error. It has to flow.
And we call this flow Fey, which comes from the root FYW, meaning to return or flow. Now keep in mind, this isn't the spoils of active combat. Fey is the natural return flow of resources to aligned agents, and it operates instantly when civilian misalignment leaves resources vacated. The system simply absorbs and redirects those resources exactly to where they can be functionally utilized.
But who actually gets this systemic resource flow? Well, the text lays out incredibly precise criteria for maintaining operational standing. It goes to those who shelter and support the vulnerable, to those who maintain an active structural commitment, marked by the root QWM, which means to actively stand up and maintain, not just passively believe in something. And finally, you have to possess verified security, or Iman. This flow is a direct structural consequence of being deeply, actively committed to the collective well-being.
All right, Part 3, the illusion of concealment, or what we call systematic inversion. This brings up a huge societal fault line. Look at the systematic duplicity here. On the one side, you have external conformity, factions swearing oaths, promising mutual defense, claiming they're all about peace. But on the flip side, the reality is internal rejection. They're withholding true commitment, operating from a scarcity mindset, and showing inherent greed. The overarching system makes this kind of inversion structurally untenable. It will crash every time.
We can understand this a lot better by unpacking two adjacent root codes, NFQ, relating to hypocrisy, and KFR, relating to concealment. Now, hypocrisy here isn't just telling a little white lie. Actually, it's a completely failed concealment mechanism. It's the act of trying to game the system,
trying to maintain your operational standing and reap the benefits without actually providing any structural commitment whatsoever. Verse 14 really hits the nail on the head here. They do not fight except in deception. The term used implies this feigned theatrical engagement. They offer these totally empty, false alliances. But because the system is continuously processing alignment and misalignment, these internal divisions and hidden resistances are inevitably rendered completely transparent. You literally cannot hide your true standing from the system.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 4, the weight of cosmic law and demonstrable authority.
So, pulling back to the ultimate reality here, the historical displacements and economic shifts we just talked about, they aren't random glitches or anomalies. They are direct, live executions of a continuous, ordered cosmic law referred to as mulk, or governance. The system is completely, absolutely uncompromising when it comes to balancing the societal and cosmic ecosystem.
And verse 24 brilliantly sets up the foundation of that system. It states, "He is Allah, the creator, the originator, the fashioner." What's absolutely crucial to grasp here is that these divine names are not just poetic, mystical titles. They are highly functional, absolute operational principles of the supreme governing authority.
Check out the mechanics behind these attributes. KLQ, producing structured creation. BR, bringing order out of prior chaos. SWR, producing proportioned form. Every single event in the surah is an expression of this demonstrable cosmic proportionality. The system's authority is entirely verifiable and completely grounded in this ordered production.
Okay, so the text drops this massive thought experiment right at the very end. It asks us to take all these objective data points, the absolute reality of this cosmic operating system we've been talking about, and project them onto a huge, seemingly immovable physical entity, like a literal mountain.
The text uses the root code SDA, and that means to split or cleave apart under immense pressure. Just think about the sheer structural weight of this ultimate reality for a second. If a mountain truly understood the weight of this cosmic accountability, the functional output of this supreme system, it would literally shatter. It highlights the breaking open of hard static realities to reveal the absolute inescapable truth beneath.
Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question. We saw at the beginning that physical fortresses, concentrated wealth, and deceptive alliances will inevitably collapse. The system demands internal clarity and active structural alignment. So, if a literal mountain would shatter and humble itself under the sheer weight of this reality, how strong are the walls you've built? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating framework with us today. Take some time to evaluate your own internal alignment, and we'll see you in the next explainer.